Alright guys, I figured I'd get on here and make a diagnostic video on this MX11 EPA 13 that I'm working on. There really doesn't seem to be too many how-to or diagnostics for these. So I'm chasing a fuel fault, a p0087 and a p0094. The 87 is just saying that we have low fuel pressure detected by the fuel gallery pressure sensor. Simple as that, low fuel pressure. The p0094 can be multiple things. It's essentially like Cummins' 559 fault. All we're saying is that the unit pumps are having to work harder than they should to maintain the same amount of fuel rail pressure. So essentially, if the unit pumps are working at 20% of their maximum capacity and they're able to make 85 or let's just say 15,000 psi of fuel pressure, the unit pumps are essentially coming back and saying, hey, we have to work 70% of our maximum capacity to maintain this same amount of 15,000 fuel rail pressure. Let's throw a fault. We have a high pressure fuel system issue, possibly a low pressure fuel system issue like this one, for example. Multiple things can cause that p0094. They don't always get followed with a p0087 for low fuel pressure. Sometimes it is just strictly a high fuel pressure issue. It can be caused by weak unit pumps that aren't able to keep up with the desired fuel pressure that we are demanding. Pressure relief valve could be failing. Injector ball seat erosion. We could be injecting too much fuel at one time and draining the rail. We could have a bad connection between the injectors and the fuel lines too. So the first thing that you're going to see me test here is, do we have air intrusion coming into the engine? And as you can see, we do. General rule of thumb is champagne bubbles are okay in moderation. You don't want too many, of course. Beer foam is where you have an issue. You got to think of it as if you dip this line into a fuel tank or into a bucket of fuel. Are you going to get bubbles coming back up? Are you going to have foam coming back out? In this case, we would. But the reason I'm not paying too close of attention to this is because we had these fuel lines off, right, to install this fuel diagnostic line, and we introduced air into the system, right? And on these earlier model Paccar fuel filter housings, there's a thermostat in them. You can't control what the thermostat does like you can on the newer models. So these older models, we are going to be returning fuel until we reach a desired temperature of about 110 degrees, and then we'll send it back to the tank. So any air that we just introduced into the engine, we are now recirculating it through the engine. So that's why I'm not going to pay too close of attention to this. Now, once I fix the problem, which I'll get into details later, if I still had air intrusion after all of that, and I know we're sending back to the tank and we're getting air back out of the engine or into the engine, then I would start chasing that. But for now, I'm going to keep it on the back of my mind, but I'm not going to focus too much on it. So that's the first test. And then you're going to see on this next one that we have I'm testing straight off of the transfer pump. So the transfer pump is what sucks fuel from the tank and pressurizes it into the fuel pressure or into the fuel module. So I'm testing directly off of that at 1200 RPM is our spec. And you're expected 79 to 129 PSI. Now again, remember, we are fluctuating on this gauge. As you can see, you're going to see fuel pressures come up and you're going to see them drop in here a little bit. The reason I'm not too worried about that again is remember, we are introducing air into this engine, so we are getting pockets of air going through that transfer pump. So we're not just compressing fuel. We're also getting air in there, which skews our results a little bit. So again, you're going to see me. I like to at least see, hey, are we creating pressure? Yes, we are. Is it what we're looking for spec-wise? No, not quite. But there's a reason behind it. We're introducing air, and that's going to skew your results. So it's good to know, hey, we're making fuel pressure enough for this truck to run and run good on. Is it what we're looking for? No, not necessarily, but we have a reason why. So we're going to continue on the fuel testing diagnostics of this. And the next thing that you are going to see me plumb into is going to be straight out of the fuel module. The MX11s are a little different than the MX13s. The MX13s actually plumb into the back of the block from the fuel module, and we feed fuel through the back of the fuel module through the block to the fuel gallery. On the MX11, we have an external fuel line that we feed the fuel gallery externally. So you're going to see I'm plumbed into that, and I have a pressure gauge on there, and I'm also looking for flow. And you're going to see we have no fuel flow coming out of this unit, which this truck should not be running. I'm not sure where it's getting its fuel from, unless there's just excess fuel in the fuel gallery. But we're not putting any fuel into this truck, and it's still running. And the reason I say all this is because originally the truck came in, I put fuel filters in it because they were starting to plug and they weren't Paccar OEM. When I had the fuel filter out of the fuel module, I inspected the ball, no filter, no run ball, and it was in place where it should be. I'm like, okay, we'll put fuel filters in it, we'll test drive it. We test drove the unit, they parked it, it had a check engine light on for low fuel pressure again. Next morning it wouldn't start. I had to limp it into the shop, and that's when I started all these fuel diagnostic tests. And, I'm getting no flow out of the fuel filter. I'm going, okay, we've isolated the issue. It's somewhere in the fuel filter housing. It's obvious. We have not necessarily what we want going into the fuel filter housing, but we do have 70, 75 PSI going into it, and we have nothing coming out. So we can isolate, hey, we know it's in our fuel module. Now, what component? That's where you have to figure it out. So I pull the fuel filter back off and pull the fuel filter out, and that no filter, no run ball is stuck down in the housing. And like I said before, it wasn't originally like that. It was in place before, put the new fuel filters in, test drove, the next day it wouldn't start. But it must be intermittently getting lodged in there, causing our fuel pressure issue. So I ended up removing that ball. The only reason it's there is so that way if you don't put a filter in, the truck will not start. That ball blocks the fuel inlet passage. Once you put the filter in, it's supposed to lodge the ball out of the way where fuel will flow in. The ball is only there so you don't forget to put a filter in and, run the truck on unfiltered fuel. But if you run the truck with no filter, that's on you. That's your own damn problem. But so remove that white ball, put everything back on, start the truck up, and all fuel pressure readings are good. We're reading good. We're reading 110, 120 coming out of the fuel filter housing, 110, 120 coming out of the fuel pressure port, and same thing with the transfer pump, of course. So that just goes back to saying, I just wanted to give a quick overview on this. What are we doing with these fuel tests? What are we looking for? How do we isolate problems? How do we, begin the troubleshooting of it? And what do these fault codes actually mean? Like I said, there's not very many videos on here that describe this or give the information out that can really help a guy out. So I just wanted to come on here and kind of give an overview of what my troubleshooting looked like for this, how I figured out what the issue was, and what it looked like.